So folks, before we get started in about a minute, I just want to tell you we are streaming live, so there are people, at least 3 or 4 people around the world watching, and so because this is a 360-degree camera, they can go swipe and watch you, so it's very important that you applaud for all of the solos. Whenever everybody's ready, we'll get started here. Two bars. 1, 2. Well, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to all of our visitors on the World Wide Web. I'm sure most of you recognize I Can't Stop Loving You, Don Gibson's 1958 song that was one of Ray Charles's greatest hits. We are the Roseville Big Band, and our soloist on that was trombonist Keith Miner. We're going to be here for an hour playing over 100 years worth of songs that have been famous and helped us live our lives with joy, just like that one. And now, one from 1936, songwriting team of Dorothy Fields and Jerome Kern. This one came from the film Swing Time, starring Fred Astaire. Anybody see that one? Yeah, Swing Time was a great film. It won the Academy Award, this song did, for Best Original Song in 1936. Now, Fred Astaire recorded a version of it, and the American Film Institute keeps a list of the top 100 songs in American cinema, and this one finished in 1936, the number 43 on the top songs from American cinema. Here is The Way You Look Tonight.
I will
Karen Dunn is the featured vocalist on Just the Way You Look Tonight. Karen will be back later, but let's give her another big round of applause right now. So this next song is one for which we need your help to make it truly effective. Let's try something. I'm going to ring a telephone and ask you to call out a telephone number. Just see what happens. Well, thanks. Our agents are standing by to take your order. But seriously, folks, Glenn Miller was not only a consummate showman and trombonist and band leader, he was also quite the businessman, because he figured if he worked a certain telephone number into a song, that would let people know what number they had to call to book a table to hear him playing at the Cafe Rouge in the Hotel Pennsylvania. And that number is? Pennsylvania 65000. That's right, it's Pennsylvania 65000. Was anyone here ever on a party line? Okay, so we're going to do this kind of party line style. When you hear two ringy-dingies, then you call out Pennsylvania 65000. Let's try that, and for you at home too, you can call it out. Pennsylvania 65000. But when you hear one long ring, then you have to do it in the jazzy style that the Glenn Miller Band did. Pennsylvania 65000. So let's try that one too. Pennsylvania 65000. Well, what do you think? Are they ready? Are you ready? Okay, here we go with Glenn Miller's Pennsylvania 65000 with your help. Pennsylvania 65000. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. I've got like a dozen, everyone's uncle and cousin. Let's not be without buzzing. Pennsylvania 65000. I got a sweet behind nowhere. It serves me a glow there. Makes me the sweetest mellow there. Pennsylvania 65000. We don't say how are ya, and we say what's new. Instead we stand in each hall. So I spend all my money. Pennsylvania 65000. Thanks very much. You heard Dan Theobald out here on the trumpet solo, Glenn Peterson on tenor sax. My name's Glenn Newton, and I did the vocal and played that telephone. You know, that's something you don't learn at Juilliard. You just have to have natural talent. And of course, you showed your natural talent by shouting out that famous telephone number. One of the greatest composers of the 20th century was a guy named Edward Kennedy Ellington. You probably know him as Duke Ellington. And this next number is one of two of his compositions on tonight's program, this afternoon's program. He collaborated with Billy Strayhorn Mercer in 1958 to write Satin Doll.
Swing around, hold her, when she wakes me over her shoulder. She makes me, I'll have you at a dawn.
Careful on the road, you're flipping.
But she's all about the sun, so it's bright and the cool as can be.
very much, folks. On the Satin Doll, you heard pianist Mike Holt, vocalists Karen and Glenn, along with Mark Simon on the flugelhorn and Dan Desmonds on the tenor sax. Great big round of applause. Well, now it's time to meet one of the sections of the band. And normally, if you see a big band like this, the leader will say, the guys standing in back are our trumpet section. But that's just part of what I'm going to say, because they are our trumpet and flugelhorn section. Yes, go ahead, guys. Hold up those trumpets and flugelhorns. And you can see that each of the instruments has 3 valves. It's got a bell, it's got a mouthpiece, and it makes a sound that's kind of trumpetish-like. But it might be appropriate for us to have a demonstration now of the difference between trumpet and flugelhorn. Do we have anybody who would like to give a So, echoes of Chuck Mangione on the flugelhorn. That was the flugelhorn, okay? And that was the trumpet. So if you had to describe the difference between their sounds, you might say that the flugelhorn has a kind of a mellow, reserved sound, and the trumpet has that brilliant cutting edge that we use when we need somebody to soar over the top of the band. Now, let's meet the guys who did those demos and the rest of the trumpet and flugelhorn section. Please hold your applause and acknowledge. And our trumpet demo, the horn demo guy who soloed earlier on the trumpet, Dan Theobald. Next to him, our trumpet demo guy who soloed on the flugelhorn, Mark Simon. Next to him, our other Mark Lee, and on the end, Bob Nielsen, the Roseville Big Band trumpet and flugelhorn section. This next tune was originally composed as an instrumental, and that's the way we're going to perform it. In 1954, Errol Garner wrote Misty. Now later, Johnny Burke added lyrics to it, and that became a hit recording for Johnny Mathis and many others. So here is the Roseville Big Band's version of Misty. Soloists on Misty. On the alto sax, Bill Frank. On the trumpet, Bob Nielsen, and trombone, Brian Tempest. Now our next song is one that I'm sure you've heard in the past. It's a famous one by Rodgers and Hart, written in 1937, introduced in the musical Babes in Arms. But if I read you the lyrics to the introduction, which is rarely performed, as you may guess why when you hear the lyrics, see if you can guess what the actual song is. So the lyrics to the introduction say, "Behold the way our fine feathered friend his virtue doth parade. Thou knowest not, my dim-witted friend, the picture thou hast cast. Thy vacant brow and thy tousled hair conceal thy good intent. Thou noble, upright, truthful, sincere, and slightly dopey gent." How many of you guessed that was going to be the song after those silly lyrics on the introduction? Yeah, what a change of pace that is. So you heard Karen Dunn again. The flugelhorn solo was by Bob Nielsen, the trombone solo by Michael Sweet. But now, before we go any further, I'd like to answer a question which is in the heads of many people here and on the World Wide Web, and that is, who are these people that came early and got front row seats in the band? Well, of course, we're talking about the Roseville Big Band saxophone section. You've met some of them already as soloists, but now let's meet the whole group, and please hold your applause until they've all stood up and been acknowledged. On tenor sax here, Glenn Peterson. On alto sax, Bill Frank. On alto sax, Kay Foster. On tenor sax, Dan Desmonds. And on the baritone sax, we have Bill Pearson, the Roseville Big Band saxophone section. And now, here's... Okay. We had a pad fall out of the saxophone. Happens all the time. So Kay's going to go replace it while we continue. And now I'd like to introduce Keith Miner, our soloist on this next number.
Saturday dance, heard they crowded the floor, couldn't bear it without you, don't get around much anymore. Thought I'd visit the club, got as far as the door, they'd have asked me about you, don't get around much anymore. Darling, I guess my mind's more at ease, but nevertheless, oh, I still love memories. Right in my dreams, might have done the whole thing. I'm nothing more. That my mind's more at ease, but nevertheless, oh, just why should I still love memories? Been invited on days, might have gone the road for.
Let me give you just a little background on that. Besides the fact that we had Keith Miner singing on it, let's give Keith another big round of applause. That was our second Duke Ellington tune on the program. He co-wrote it with Bob Russell in 1942. And it was originally called Never No Lament. First recorded in Ellington in 1940, then re-recorded with the new title and Russell's lyrics in 1942. Now, I know that someplace out there is somebody saying, I feel so sorry for Keith Miner because he forgot his lyrics partway through. Well, nah, we planned it that way. See, that's a style of musical expression that's called scat singing, in which you use nonsense syllables to imitate the sounds that might be made by a trumpet or trombone or saxophone. Scat singing is a lot of fun. How many of you have done some scat singing in the past? Anybody? A few of you have. That's great. You know, it really catches on, too. Why, just the other day when it was a balmy 12 degrees out, Keith heard a cat yowling on the fence behind his house. So he opened the window and shouted, "Scat, cat!" And the cat went, boom-bop. And my heartfelt thanks go out to the band for laughing for that joke for the 500th time. Now, this next song was written by Harold Arlen, Billy Rose, and Yip Harburg in 1932. It was originally entitled If You Believe in Me, and it was featured in a very short-running play called The Great Magoo. It later appeared in a 1933 film called Take a Chance with its current title, and it was still later used as the title song of the 1973 film Paper Moon, starring the father and daughter team of Ryan and Tatum O'Neill. Here's Karen to help me present It's Only a Paper Moon. Yes, it's only a canvas sky hanging over that muslin tree. But it wouldn't be make-believe if you believed in me.
Without your love, it's a honky-tonk parade.
And without your love, it's a melody played in a penny arcade.
It's a bargain daily world, just as phony as it can be. But it would be make-believe if you believed in me.
Yes, it's only a canvas sky hanging over a muslin tree.
But it would be make-believe if you believed in me. Without your love, it's a honky-tonk parade.
And without your love, it's a melody played in a penny arcade.
It's a bargain daily world, just as phony as it can be. But it would be make-believe.
You know it wouldn't be make-believe.
No, it would be make-believe if you believe in me.
Thank you very much. Karen Dunn and Glenn Newton featured on Paper Moon. Well, now it's time to meet yet another section of the band. These are the guys who know that they form the bridge between the front and the back of the band. And they know also that whatever they play on their instruments, they're never more than 4 or 5 inches away from a note that would sound good. Of course, that gives them the confidence to be the Roseville Big Band trombone section. You've met several of them already, but now let's hold our applause until they've all stood up and been acknowledged. We'll start down at this end with Michael Sweet on tenor trombone, Keith Miner on vocal and tenor trombone, Brian Tempest on tenor trombone, and down at the end on the great big bass trombone, we have Tom Heelsman, the Roseville Big Band trombone section. Did anybody here happen to see the movie that was made featuring the Glenn Miller Band called Sun Valley Serenade? It was made back in that era when movies about the great bands were very popular. Well, that was where this next tune was introduced in 1941, a song by Harry Warren and Mac Gordon. It was the first song to receive a gold record, presented by RCA Victor in 1942 for sales of 1.2 million copies. The Glenn Miller recording became the #1 song across the United States on December 7th, 1941. A day that will live in infamy, but it wasn't all bad on that day because the Glenn Miller Band had a great song. It remained at #1 for 9 weeks on the Billboard's poll of top-selling songs. Here we are with Chattanooga Choo Choo.
Thank you.
again, you heard Glenn Peterson again soloing on tenor sax and drum solos from Jim Foster. One of the guys who wrote clever lyrics and catchy tunes in the 20th century was Cole Porter. This next song came from his 1934 show Anything Goes. Now, they made it into a movie in 1936 and had to change one of the lyrics a little bit. It referred to cocaine. I get no kick from cocaine. The problem was that violated the Hollywood production code of 1934, so Cole Porter changed it to the perfume in Spain. Well, when you're working with a big band like this, as you probably figured out, we can't just sit down and come together and have everything sound like it fits as it does. So we depend on the skills of arrangers. Now this one was arranged by Dave Wolpe, one of our favorites. And he decided he was going to change it to alternate bebop lyrics, which you will hear Karen sing in that particular spot. So here is I Get a Kick Out of You.
Get no kick from champagne, mere alcohol doesn't thrill me at all. So tell me, why should it be true that I get a kick out of you? Some like the bebop refrain,
that you got a kick out of that one too. You heard Karen on the vocal and Bill on the alto sax solo. Now, if you've been keeping track, you know there's one section of the band that you haven't met yet, and that's the rhythm section. These are guys that play more than anybody else because they have to keep the pulse going and play fills and things like that throughout the piece. So let's meet the rhythm section now, and again, please hold your applause until everybody's been acknowledged. So in the front, I'm Glenn Newton, and this instrument I'm playing, it's called a vibraphone. It's like a piano. It's got what would be black keys and white keys laid out that way. Oops. So those are the white keys. And those are the black keys. It's called a vibraphone because this little motor has things that make the tones vibrate. Otherwise, it sounds like the NBC theme song. Behind me, with keys that actually are black and white, is our pianist, Mike Holt. Over here on the electric bass, we have Eric Laska. And behind him, Jim Foster, the Roseville Big Band rhythm section. This next song is clearly the oldest one on our program. In fact, the story is that it originated in around 1820 with a Scottish folk song that was turned into it was called the Bonnie Woods of Craigielee. It was turned by Banjo Patterson into a song that became the most favorite song in Australia around 1895. Marie Cowan changed his words a little bit in 1903, and this is probably the one that you sang as kids when in school you sang Waltzing Matilda. Now the difference is you sang it as a waltz, and we're doing it as an up-tempo swing tune. Here is Waltzing Matilda. very much. You heard Glenn Newton, me on the cornet solo there. And who had the other solo? Mark Lee had the trumpet solo on Waltzing Matilda. We are the Roseville Big Band, sponsored by the City of Roseville's Parks and Recreation Department. We've been delighted to perform for you here today. If you'd like to see us again, find us on the World Wide Web at www.rosevillebigband.org or check us out on Facebook. We hope we'll see every one of you many times in the future. Thank you very much, folks. Drive safely. Keep warm.